The 2022 season has come to a close, and one thing is clear: the SEC is still on top of the college football world. In this video, we grade each team based on their expectations and performance. Grading is on an A to F scale. Let's use a tier list to sort this one out. We will start with the kid wearing a dunce cap in the corner, and that is none other than Texas A&M. The Aggies started the season ranked number 6, which, by the way, anyone who has watched this team last year knew that was way too high. They were on the momentum of the best recruiting class of all time, then went on a 6-game losing streak and finished bowl ineligible. That pretty much sums it up. The offense was an abomination. Shuffling through 3 quarterbacks is never good, and losing arguably your most versatile playmaker 4 games into the season is rough. The sole bright spot was the play of some underclassmen later in the year, but overall the performance was unacceptable. The defense was, by comparison, a welcome change of pace. The pass defense was elite, while the rush defense was very much the opposite. But it wasn't worse than the offense. The good news for the Aggies is that 5 of the 7 losses this year were by 1 score. The bad news is that 7 losses is still 7 losses. This was the most disappointing team in college football, earning an F. Anytime you fire your coach mid-season, it's pretty clear things aren't going well, and it was certainly a rocky one in Auburn. Arson just never seemed to click through his time with the program. Cadillac Williams took over after a 4-game skid and helped Auburn finish the remainder of their season on a more positive note. Quarterback Robbie Ashford and the offense struggled, but developed through the season, and the defense disappointed, finishing second to last in the SEC in scoring. I don't think anyone had Auburn setting the world on fire this season, but you could hardly call it a success. Although I do think they're on an upward trajectory through the struggles of the season, the Auburn Tigers finished the year with a D+. When I predicted Arkansas would struggle this season, I had Razorback fans at my throat, and for good reason. The Hogs looked to be in prime position to compete in the West after years of disappointment. The team started off strong, hit a rough patch, and was inconsistent to close out the season. 4 of their losses were by 3 or fewer points, so a couple of bounces go their way and the outlook on the season drastically changes. Offensively, Arkansas rode the wave that is KJ Jefferson, who passed for 15 of his 22 touchdowns and wins this year, and Raheem Rocket Sanders, who rushed for nearly 1,500 yards. But the team struggled in the red zone. On the defensive side of the ball, the secondary was an issue as the team ranked dead last. That's right, 131 of 131 in passing yards allowed per game. Making a bowl game for the 3rd straight year is good, but at the end of the day, it wasn't the result Arkansas faithful expected this year, and the inability to meet those high expectations is deserving of a D+. Kentucky came into the season with high expectations as well, starting the year on a 4-game win streak and jumping into the top 10. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. The Wildcats went 3-6 the rest of the year and never seemed to fully build back their momentum. Offensively, the team struggled, beginning with the offensive line, which did Will Levis no favors. The offense was also one of the slowest in college football, ranking near the bottom of the nation in plays per game. Defensively, the team played well despite losing some key contributors during the season. It was one of the most efficient defenses in the country, ranking in the top 15 in total defense and scoring defense. They did have trouble forcing turnovers and struggled pressuring opposing quarterbacks, but were the stronger side of the ball. Unfortunately, this all resulted in a rocky road through SEC play, which included giving Vanderbilt their first conference win in ages. Kentucky had the opportunity to grab sole possession of second best in the East this year, but was unable to do so, and with a 10-win season in the rear view, earns a C-. Year 1 under Billy Napier was full of growing pains. Gators fans had hopes that Anthony Richardson would blossom into a superstar this season. Unfortunately, he was consistently inconsistent, and the team reflected this, never managing to win more than 2 consecutive games through the year. Florida lost to 4 rivals they played this season, giving up 40 or more points against Georgia, LSU, and Florida State. The defense was near the bottom of the SEC in most categories, and many individual players had disappointing seasons. But it wasn't all bad. The team had its moments, including beating Utah to start the year, handily defeating a South Carolina team that was better than most expected, and building a potentially elite tandem in the backfield in Montrell Johnson Jr. and Trevor Etienne. While the overall record was the same as last year, this year's Gators did win 1 more SEC game. However, more is expected in the swamp. Year 1 was a feeling out process, deserving of a C. The Rebels started the year 7-0, but there were rumblings of they ain't played nobody Paul in the background. Turns out, the rumblings were true. Their backloaded schedule did them no favors as Kiffin and co skidded to a 1-5 finish, including losing 4 straight. There was an expected drop-off for the team, especially on offense considering the talent that was lost. but the stats between this year's group and last year's were actually pretty similar, although the 2022 edition of the offense focused on pounding the rock, finishing third in the nation in rushing. Unfortunately, turnovers reared their ugly heads, and it only takes a couple to go from a 10-win to 8-win season. Kiffin brought in 17 transfers, many of whom played key roles during the year, and he should be given credit for transforming the offense to fit that talent. Freshman running back Quinshon Judkins also burst onto the scene, earning first-team All-SEC and SEC Freshman of the Year honors. Breaking down the details on defense, Ole Miss finished 6th in the SEC in yards allowed per play, but did struggle in the red zone. While an 8-win season was a common prediction for this year's Rebels, the finish after a 7-win start left many with a bad taste in their mouths, earning Ole Miss a C. Missouri's year had its ups and downs, but no one can say it wasn't at least entertaining. Nearly half of the games they played in came down to the wire. Finishing the season 2-4 in one-possession games, this could have easily been an 8-win team. They even had Georgia on upset alert in October. The offensive line struggled throughout the year, but quarterback Brady Cook steadily improved, as did transfer running back Cody Schrader. The Mizzou defense was the strong side of the ball, anchored by a defensive front that was impressive throughout the year. While expectations weren't sky high, the Tigers were so close yet so far from breaking through in many of their nail-biters through the year, earning a C. Vanderbilt got better. More wins this year, better point differential, but still Vandy football. For reference, Vanderbilt's overall record from 2019 to 2021, 5-28, 1-24 in conference games. This season, Vanderbilt won 5 games, including 2 in conference. Now that's an improvement. The fact remains that Vanderbilt had one of the worst offenses in the SEC and one of the worst defenses in college football. However, this team still managed to surpass expectations, and for that, I'll give them a B-. Should Alabama have been in the college football playoff? Computers thought so, including ESPN's FPI and SP+. Unfortunately for Bama fans, the committee thought otherwise, and in what has become a rarity, Alabama missed out on the college football playoffs. Offensively, it feels like Bill O'Brien has been on the hot seat, yet they finished 4th in the nation in scoring at over 40 points a game and 11th in total offense. Despite this, compared to the Bama standard, the offense wasn't smooth sailing throughout the season and encountered some struggles. Thankfully, when you have Bryce Young, a lot of those struggles get eliminated. The same could be said about the defense, ranking in the top 15 in points and yards allowed, but still highly scrutinized when compared to the elite defenses Bama rolls out year after year, struggling to force turnovers. At the end of the day, no national title and no conference title is considered a losing season in Tuscaloosa. The 11-win New Year's 6 bowl winning Tide get a B-. First and foremost, you can't talk about the 2022 Mississippi State football team without acknowledging and paying respects to Mike Leach. Swing your sword, coach. On offense, Mississippi State ran the ball 30% of its plays, which was the highest percentage under Leach and helped the offensive production, while Will Rogers continued to break records through the air. Defensively, the team held its own, but shone in the turnover category, finishing with the second most turnovers forced in the conference, leading the conference in interceptions. The Bulldogs started and ended the year strong, but had some mid-season struggles, resulting in a year that was on par or slightly above expectations. Losses came against SEC West leader LSU, Kentucky, Alabama, and Georgia, none of which stood out as abnormal. The Egg Bowl victory to end the year was an added bonus and helped earn this team a solid B. Beamer ball, baby. The South Carolina season was a roller coaster. The start of the year was tough. The Spencer Rattler experiment looked like a complete disaster, but things started looking up as the Gamecocks rattled off 4 straight. Then, once they were finally ranked, they lost 2 of their next 3. Then the Shockers, which makes this season the magical one it was, or at least as magical as 8 wins gets you. Victories over top 10 ranked Tennessee and Clemson, effectively eliminating both from the college football playoff conversation. Ironically, to end the season, South Carolina was ranked again, only to lose to Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl. The standout unit was of course special teams, which no one should be surprised by, including 3 successful fake punts, 6 blocked punts, and 3 return touchdowns. While the season wasn't perfect for the Gamecocks, they broke some losing streaks, broke opposing fans' hearts, and looked like they were having fun along the way. B+ for Beamer's boys. There were a lot of questions coming into Brian Kelly's inaugural season at LSU. But after Game 1, it felt like many of them had been answered. But fortunately for fans in Baton Rouge, that wasn't the case. The Tigers rebounded from a Game 1 loss to an FSU team that was also better than anyone expected, finishing the season on top of the SEC West. Unfortunately, they also finished their year on a bit of a sour note, including losses to A&M and Georgia before dismantling Purdue in their bowl game. A lot of LSU's success can be attributed to newcomers. On offense, primarily at the quarterback position, in Arizona State transfer Jaden Daniels, who threw for just under 3,000 yards and 17 touchdowns, while leading the team in rush yards and getting to the end zone 11 times on the ground. The defense improved through the year, resulting in defensive coordinator Matt House becoming a semi-finalist for the Broyles Award for Top Assistant Coach. To go from a team that was tied for last in their division, finished with a losing record, and had fewer than 40 players in their bowl game, to playing in the SEC title was no easy feat. The improvement was clear, the coaching staff adapted through the year, and LSU exceeded nearly everyone's expectations, earning an A-. I had Rocky Top stuck in my head most of the season, and not just because I had a stint coaching them in my NCAA 14 dynasty. The Vols were special this year. First 10-win season since 2007. Tennessee had only beaten Florida once since 2004, came out with the W. Future SEC West champ LSU blew them out. 15-game losing streak to Alabama, gone in an instant classic. The heroics of Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt. A top spot in the college football playoff rankings. Unfortunately, this fairy tale season didn't have a happy ending, as the Vols lost to eventual champion Georgia, then lost a head-scratching blowout to South Carolina, knocking themselves out of playoff contention. But don't let that distract you from the fact that although many people, including myself, felt like Tennessee was going to see improvement this year, I don't think anyone outside of Knoxville saw this coming. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but 11 wins, a top 10 ranking, and proving you are the best orange team in the nation to end the season, that's a success. A for Tennessee. This is an easy one. Undefeated regular season. Only one game within one possession. Cruise in the SEC title game. Power through a difficult college football playoff semifinal, then the historic beatdown for a national championship. A perfect season deserves a perfect grade, A+. The Georgia Bulldogs are kings of the SEC in 2022, but the SEC is expanding. Check out my video here where I break down potential realignment options. Let me know yours, and as always, have a great day and see y'all at the next one.